So we're back, and this time we're on the big one. It's the first round of the Champion and Champions tournaments. It's all led up to this. 16 weeks of painstaking, grueling, sometimes very heated debate has led to the final 16, and ultimately, in a couple of weeks' time, the winner as well. But first of all, they all have to get through their heats, and we'll see which ones make it through to the quarterfinal stages. So first of all, we've got someone new with us this time for this one. So we've got David here as well. He's going to help
Hello.
us break up some. Well, we're going to have some situations where we're potentially going to be tied. So hopefully he'll swing it one way or another, 3-1. But if they were tied, we'll go to the community voting as well. But David, do you just want to introduce yourself? Maybe say what your favorite faction is, how long you've been playing Smash Up for?
I've been playing Smash Up for about a year, 18 months at this point now, and like favorite factions, not that many, but maybe Vikings, something very different. Adds a bit of chaos in the world.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want a bit of that?
Well, Luke will be happy to hear that, as that's 3 Vikings fans on the call. I don't know if you can raise the volume of your mic a little bit, David. It was a little bit quiet there. I don't know if you can. It's maybe because it's a bit far away or something. I don't know. But so just on this, I'll say it at the end as well. But the next round for the voting, so voting for the quarterfinals, semi-finals, and the final will be down in the description below and in the pinned comment. I know if I say it at the end, people might not get to the end, so I'll say it at the start as well. But thank you to all those who voted in the first round. We had 60 submissions, which was an incredible result. I wasn't expecting to get that many. Unfortunately, I did lose a few of the responses through SurveyMonkey. I didn't realize there was a 40 response limit, so I only ended up with about 52, 53 of the responses. So we've still got most of the data, so apologies to the ones that I was unable to retrieve, but I wasn't paying £99 to get 9 surveys or whatever it was, so they can forget about that. I'm not that committed to the cause. No.
Have you not monetized this channel yet?
No, I'm afraid not. We need a few more subscribers and a few more watch hours for that yet. But yeah, so we've got most of them, and I've got all the pairings up across the bottom. So once we've done a pairing, we'll go and see what the community voted, and I'll keep a very small tally of the people's champion up on the top there as well to see who most closely correlates with the community.
Why did I have to stop swearing if we aren't monetizing these videos?
Because at some point in the future they may become monetized, I suppose.
Yeah, fair point.
Might be children watching this. It's a family-friendly show.
Yeah, Smash is a family-friendly game.
Anyway, is not a family-friendly card.
So just before we jump into it, has anyone done any kind of prep for this, or are you going just on a women of prayer?
I'm going in blind. I'm going in with a clean heart, clean mind. I'm willing to be swayed.
I suppose for me, I'll just for me, I've looked at across a few things. So I've done player count, ease of play, transferability, and how devastating it is. So for me now, the role it plays in the faction is a much smaller part for me now. We're now beyond that really. We're looking for the best card now. So the Monarch effect is a much smaller thing for me. It's much less important. So that's kind of my big takeaway in the run up to this. So let's get straight into it. Pairing number 1, Champion of Champions tournament. Time Walk up against Chicken Soup. And I don't know if that's clear enough to you guys. It's a little bit blurry on my screen, but it may well come out okay on the final video. So who wants to even make the very first stab at the very first pairing in the final? Go on, Luke. I can see you smiling away there, Luke.
I was just going to bounce it back to you as the host of the show, but I think we should go for it. He was ready. Lean forward.
I'm in. Okay. On the face of it, I actually originally, when I first, obviously, I have looked through these and wanted to sort of get my sort of preemptive takeaways and my sort of preconceptions in there, and sort of see roughly again what some of the cards do, because some of these are from factions that I don't play a great deal. So it's nice to have a bit of a look through. And I remember the discussion that was around Chicken Soup when we were first talking about it. And I remember how Mark thought that me and Luke weren't intelligent enough to be able to identify Chicken Soup as a good card. So that has stuck in my craw a little bit as we've been kind of going through this. When I first looked at this pairing, I thought, it's Time Walk. It's an absolute walkover. No pun intended. It's Time Walk. It's going to be a really easy one. But the more and more I look, the more and more I think actually Chicken Soup is a sneakily great card. You start thinking that 2 cards that you've recycled, the fact that it says cards and not minions or actions, is what makes it so appealing. So when you're looking at Chicken Soup, you're using this to get 2 of your best cards back. And it's any cards. And within the Grannies faction, and I know Mark's just said that the Monarch effect isn't going to swing him, but the Monarch effect has a damn big effect on me. So, but within the Grannies faction, Chicken Soup plays a massive role because it can take it from bottom or top of deck, or in terms of where you're drawing from. That's massive, because theoretically you could take a minion, you could take an action, you could put them wherever you sort of want to put them. So the amount of manipulation involved with that is fairly huge. The same sort of thing with Time Walk, though. You know, we talk about the fact that minions are 50% of the game. So an extra minion and an extra action this turn, you get to basically take a free turn, and you get another 2 cards. And it doesn't go to the discard pile; it goes into the bottom of your deck. So my initial gut reaction was Time Walk's going to absolutely walk away with this. It's going to be such an easy one. And then I sort of thought, actually, Chicken Soup is much better than anybody really gives it credit for, as Mark likes to point out that me and Luke are thick. And then you look back at Time Walk and think, no, I can't get over the fact that it's basically a free turn. So for me, it's Time Walk. Even though Chicken Soup is a great card and absolutely deserves to be here, it's sneakily great because it allows you to recycle 2 of your best cards. But Time Walk gives you a free turn, and I think you're more likely to be able to make more use out of Time Walk than you are Chicken Soup, and I think that's what tips it for me.
Should we go from bottom to top, as from my screen as I'm looking at it? So, David, do you want to go next?
I think, yeah, I agree 100% with what Lee said. Chicken Soup is good. It's a very good get back your best cards, but a free turn, you can't really turn that down. Possibly, no, I think you can't turn it down. Free turn, extra turn, better than 2 good cards.
Okay, you're for Time Walk as well. Well, Luke, unless me and you want to put up a staunch defense for Chicken Soup, we could be having the first winner so far.
I don't feel like I do. I feel like most of the smash up games I've played, unless there's been a clear cut better pairing within the game, has come down to you all reach this sort of tipping point where the next base gets it, or the next victory point gets it, or the next one to win one over another, and it just starts to reach this nice crescendo near the end where one turn could make the difference. Being one turn ahead could make the difference. And the fact that, because Lee always wakes up the first out of all of us, and the starting criteria is whoever wakes up the first. That's right in this game, isn't it? It's whoever woke up first that morning, isn't it?
No, well, I mean, there's all sorts of. I can't remember the exact. I only know it from Marvel because it's the last person to read a Marvel comic.
It varies per expansion.
Yeah, it changes per expansion. Yeah.
Okay.
Well, you can really do whatever you want.
Yeah.
We've played the original, so it basically means Lee goes first every single game because he gets up at 5 a.m. or something crazy. So to catch a turn back on him could make a difference in the game.
Yeah, I think that's one of the key points, is that the game ends as soon as someone's won. So it's not like those games where someone reaches the finish and then everyone still has a final turn or the round finishes. It's literally as soon as someone's got 15 points, the game ends. So actually having an extra turn somewhere in the middle of that on everybody else could be a huge swing factor. For me, Chicken Soup is the archetypal. It's the best recovery card in the game because it's so universal. It's any 2 cards. It's better than any of the zombie recovery cards, I would say, because the zombie recovery cards are typically a minion or an action. Okay, they come back to the hand or in play, but to any 2 cards back to the hand at the end of your turn, I think is a better universal effect. But for me, Time Walk does edge this one out because actually it's, if you look at the effect, you know, we've got cards like Summon, which is play an extra minion. We've got cards that let you play an extra action. We've got cards that draw 2 cards. So this is effectively bundling 3 cards into one, which is what makes it so unbelievably strong, despite the fact it's in a pretty subpar, below average faction. And again, this is for me where it just doesn't really come into it at all. So just, I'll give you a brief flavor of what I was doing with these pairings. So at player count, neither card has any advantage over the other because they're good at 2 through 4 players. Ease of play, so Time Walk is an easier card to play than Chicken Soup, I think, because Chicken Soup is a card that you play sort of towards the mid to late game is when it gets to the best kind of value, whereas Time Walk, you can really play at any moment in the game. It's not limited by when you play it. How transferable is it? Well, they're both equally transferable. They can be dropped into any faction, and either faction would appreciate it. And then how devastating is it? And Chicken Soup's not a card where you play it and everyone goes, "Whoa, what have you done there?" Like, it's not a high impact card when you play it, whereas Time Walk, I think, has a slight edge on it. So for me, it was Time Walk. It's a better card in my books for this one. So I think that's a clean sweep. Everyone's gone Time Walk. Now, what do you reckon? Here's a question for you. What do you reckon the split in the community was? What percentage would you think went Time Walk? What percentage do you think went Chicken Soup?
I think
70%.
highly in favour of Time Walk.
How highly in favour do you think?
Over 90.
Over 90%. That's a huge margin.
85, 80%, 20%.
80%. Luke?
70.
70. Well, I'm going to put us all for one on the Voice of the People count because we all got it right. It was 90 to 10.
Yeah.
Bye, Mark. It was good while it lasted. Is this just building suspense before he drops in the actual percentage value?
Can you hear me?
I like that he's posed like this as well. It's the real, it's the real deal there.
It did this last time. I don't know why. Can you hear me?
A professional outfit here, Mark. We'll never monetize like this.
I've actually sent someone around to cut his internet off just before the Eliza round.
Everyone else is frozen.
He's moved.
Things I can hear.
Oh, look at that.
They did that last time.
Look at that.
90-10. Yeah.
Do I get an extra point for being exactly spot on?
No.
No, you said over 90. Right.
That was closer without going over, yeah?
85. Well, we all get the Voice of the People count on that one. We all got it correct. Okay, round 2. Hair Doctor.
Hair Doctor.
And your friend and mine, Eliza. So should we flip the order this time? I'll start and then we'll go down to Lee.
Yep.
Okay. I mean, it will come as no surprise for most people to hear me say that Eliza is the better card in this pairing. I think just because of the fact that Eliza is so incredibly strong against certain pairings, and it's quite a few pairings. It's not just certain pairings. It's I'd say maybe 50% to a slight majority of combinations in the game that have extra plays, and the fact that it's such a stone wall against those pairings. Admittedly, in other matchups, it might not be doing as well, but in those matchups, you're okay with that because Eliza is there really to slow down the game. Princesses typically play slow, so generally Eliza is there to act as that kind of stone wall to slow the game down to allow you to catch up. Whereas Hair Doctor, I think, is absolutely great. I think it's a worse Odysseus, and I would have liked to have seen Odysseus in the final, but as we know, that's not quite how the It's Your Fault matchup ended up. It is very good. It relies on you having at least one other minion in play, but generally that's not going to be an issue because, you know, it's so easy to have more than one minion in play and it's just such good value. But for me, the ceiling on Eliza is much higher than Hair Doctor. Hair Doctor is just a solid, strong, ongoing effect, but it's really nothing more than that. Whereas Eliza can be game-changing, and it can be your singular card win condition. Like, that's how good it can be in certain matchups. Whereas Hair Doctor, you could never say was a win condition. It's just a very solid engine minion for value over time. And actually, you know, after sort of 5 turns, you've got yourself another Hair Doctor in the game as well. So it's good, but across my sort of categories of how I was looking at it, Eliza just edged it out because it is such a devastating card. It is one of those cards that it can be something where if it comes into play, you do everything you possibly can to make sure it leaves play as soon as possible. So for me, it's Eliza.
I am shocked.
Yeah. For me, it's very comfortably Hair Doctor. More probably so that I don't rate Eliza than I do Hair Doctor. It's okay. It's a good counter to some of the Swarm factions. So robots, etc., zombies probably. But if you play a faction that plays 3 cards a turn, it's literally a pointless card. And there are a lot of factions where you don't play more than 1 extra card per turn. There's a lot more factions where that exists than there are ones where it does. And okay, yeah, it's good against robots, but Princesses and Eliza are never going to beat robots even with her on the field. It's just so much of a better faction than Princesses are. So okay, she has a unique and solid ability against certain factions, but within her own faction, she becomes fairly quickly useless. If you're going to go against robots, the best way to play against something like robots is to have your own Swarm faction and try and just outrace them, or I don't know, play something that destroys, or you can do that kind of thing. But really, you're going to play. If you look at Mad Scientists, they're not doing it more than 1 additional action plays every turn. Most of these cards on the list of factions they come from aren't doing more than 1 extra play per turn. If you play in a 4-player game and somebody's running a Swarm faction where they want to play more cards than you do, then you're also helping me. If I'm playing Mad Scientists something else and you put Eliza down and it kills a robot player, it helps me. You've helped me by playing that down. So it doesn't help you win the race. It just helps you slow people down a little bit. But it's not powerful enough to win this thing. It's not powerful enough to beat probably a single card on this board. I just really don't think that she is. Hair Doctor's good. I don't think he's the best card here, but I think he's good. I think he's solid. I think he does add value over time. I think he puts a smaller target on his back to remove him off the field, so you'll gain the benefit of him for longer. Whereas if somebody really does hate Eliza, they'll hunt her down and get her off the field, which you'd probably say that means she is powerful, but it means she's going to get off the field quickly, so she's not going to be able to add her value for very long. So I wish I'd probably watched my my video on Eliza now and remembered all my reasons why I didn't rate her, but I think I've probably said enough of them there for the viewers, certainly. Yeah, I'll go for Hair Doctor.
David?
I think I agree with everything Luke said there, apart from one thing. Hair Doctor, to me, is one of the weakest cards in this group. And Eliza, as much as would make the best card in Smash, if not the best faction sort of thing, because, yeah, Faction Princess wouldn't have a chance. But I think Eliza, as a hard counter to a lot of decks, is a brilliant card. She gets a target on the back. That shows how good she is against some decks. And Hair Doctor, he's going to be on the field for 5-10 turns max, which I don't think is that much of a payoff to be the best card in Special. So I'd have to go Eliza as much as I don't want to. I don't like the card, but it's better than Hair Doctor.
Lee, you're going to tie this one up for the first time?
Interesting. Really interesting listening to both of you talk. I mean, honestly, Mark, you love Eliza so much. It is depressing. Luke, you hate Eliza so much. It's also equally depressing. It's interesting. There's no real argument for Herr Doctor here. There's only arguments against Eliza, which is difficult. I'm really trying to convince myself that Eliza's not a very good card. Now, I agree with what Lucas said, and I think the thing that's tipping me a little bit more towards Herr Doctor than Eliza, which is going to tie it up and take it to the people's vote, which is a bit of drama as well. The thing that's tipping me that way is that I think that whilst Eliza counters, it doesn't counter as much as you think it does. And I think a lot of the time I've overlooked this. I've overlooked the fact that because it's so uniquely interesting, there's nothing else that really does what Eliza does. That's what makes me want to vote for Eliza, because it's so uniquely different. The thing that I'm looking at with this pairing, and honestly, we've talked a lot already about these two cards, and the really ironic thing is that neither of them are better than Time Walk. Spoilers. But so it doesn't really matter which one it is that sort of goes through here, because quite honestly, neither of them are the best card in Smash Up as far as I'm concerned. Neither of them are going any further. And if either two of them were against most of the cards in this final rounds, they wouldn't have got through either. So I'm going to lean Herr Doctor only because, for two main reasons. Number one, it's about time that we started speaking honestly about Eliza, and we hate that woman. And number two, I want to take it to the vote just to see what the people say.
I mean, just before we take it to the people, I'm going to try and just raise one more thing here. Is that
I feel like you've had enough time to talk. You've had enough time to talk.
So
You both-
the person who already knows which way the people voted wants to try and convince us to pick Eliza. Does he?
No thanks. I'm not
that in
changing
no way influences my opinions. No, I mean, you both mentioned about the how many factions it actually affects, and I'd maybe say just on, I don't know, it's finger in the air stuff, but there's probably about a third of factions in the game that don't have any extra plays. So it's about a third of the game, I'd say. But then, fair enough, it's a third of factions, but it's not going to be a third of pairings, because you don't often pair something that has no extra plays with something else that has no extra plays.
We're not saying no extra plays. We're saying one extra play. You get one extra play with this.
Well, yeah, okay, fair enough. More than one extra play. So it's probably a smaller field.
Exactly.
It's probably at least half, I'd say, though, still. It's still a decent number of pairings that can go more than one extra play. And it's not just extra plays in turn as well. Things like Spider-Verse from Marvel, you can only play one of your specials.
Eliza's not going to be out forever.
Turn.
She's one card that disrupts for a small amount of time. She's not going to be out forever.
It's a global effect as well. It's something that's...
Yeah, so you're breaking other people's games. It's out of your control, though, isn't it, with Eliza?
Okay.
When you've played it down, you're trying to play everybody. Yeah, of course we're taking it. You're not convincing
taking
anybody.
It to the people.
You're never convincing anybody.
Yeah.
How do you reckon the people voted?
I don't know.
I
really don't know.
I think they voted Herr Doctor, and I think that because of the backlash we got when we put Eliza through on the Princesses video.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I tried for that to not happen, just for the viewers. I tried to support that.
Hey, we got unlimited minutes as well, so it did work, Luke.
Excellent.
So Luke and Lee have both gone for Herr Doctor, which is interesting because you've now lost a vote on the voice of the people's list. So this is how the community voted. It was 70-30.
Nice.
In favour of Eliza. So they made their correct choice, the community, but this one was certainly closer than obviously Time Walk Chicken Soup. So we've got another winner.
Well, that's
right. We tried, Luke. We tried.
Although, as you say, Lee, it's going to get, every round's going to get tougher for Eliza. So, it's not going to be easy all the way through.
Honestly, Mark, I'm amazed she's got this far.
Yeah.
Have we got potentially another unanimous one here, I wonder? So we've got Archmage Light against Eternal Hero. And we'll flip it this time. So why don't you start us off on this one, Luke?
I mean, like you sort of preempted there, it is an easy one. Eternal Hero is better. I think we all fell in love in the last video when we just really dug into how good this card is. It's such a shame it's buried in such an awful faction that no one's ever going to play. But I just think it's so good. I think it speaks for itself. I don't think you need to say much more. I love cards that let you keep minions after base scores, and this one does it the best probably of them all. Because you get, not only do you get the minion back, you get the card to keep that minion around back. So it's an absolute smashing. Solar Shout did well to make it this far. Respect to him. But it's David and the Goliath match, but this time Goliath wins. So Eternal Hero.
Solar Shout's out there representing the Power 4 minions, same as Wayfinder and Invader. David?
And Felicia Day.
Yeah, I think, it's a walkover. Soul Shout's good, but it's not a reusable action to get your best minion back again. So, Eternal Hero.
I thought it might be a bit of an easy one, this one. Lee?
Yeah, I'd be amazed if the community voted anywhere near Solar Shout on this one. Do you know, it's a shame though, because our eyes were opened when we were talking about these factions. In fact, this expansion, we expected it to be a real boring conversation, but it turned out to be, I think, one of my favorite episodes that we filmed, because we talked about a lot of comparative cards, and we sort of learned a lot about different cards that none of us are really interested in playing. I mean, the Changer Bots are not a faction that I ever really am remotely interested in playing, but after discussing some of the things about them and basically saying that Solar Shout is Archmage Light, it was nice to be able to put it through, but I do think it's gone as far as it can go against something like Eternal Hero. Eternal Hero's arguably the best action card in the game, and we're going to argue that quite strongly, I imagine, as this competition goes a little bit further. 100%. It's just a shame that Eliza wasn't paired with Eternal Hero. We could have got rid of her sooner.
Yeah, but Eliza is the perfect Eternal Hero card. Eliza is what makes Eternal Hero good. Anyway, just as you said with Eliza in the last round, I think, spoilers, this could be as far as either of these cards go.
Yeah, same.
I think Solar Shout is obviously here for the people who were disappointed that Invader knocked out Archmage in the very first tournament we did. But yes, I think as you mentioned there, the set as a whole I thought was disappointing, but I was surprised by how good some of the individual cards were. And they're basically just worse versions of really good cards. Like we saw Change Up and Roll, which was like Full Sail but a worse Full Sail, and this is like Archmage but a worse Archmage. It's like they'd almost printed the cards more balanced in a way from core sets, some of the really strong ones. But for me, this is quite an easy one. I think it's Eternal Hero over Solar Shout, just because of that long-term value that you're going to get from Eternal Hero. And especially if you can go into any matchup knowing that if your opponent's not getting any way of destroying Eternal Hero, then you basically, cheating, you're scumming them out of the game, really, because Eternal Hero is going to get so much value if it can just keep on being played over and over again. And it's a sort of card that you have to counter. It's a very strong card, and if someone's got Eternal Hero, you have to go into it with at least a couple of cards that can destroy actions. And if you don't, then you're up against a big wall, really. So as good as Solar Shout is, it's an Archmage, it's great, and there's two of them in the faction. That's also really good. But for me, it's just you can't beat that value of Eternal Hero. So I think we're sorry, go on, Luke.
They've tried to give Eternal Hero's downside as using your minion and action play each turn to replay this, but it's not enough of a downside, because you're getting to keep your best minion on the field, and that is so powerful for many factions. And okay, yeah, it does cost you minion and your action play again, but you're not necessarily breaking a base every turn to that effect and having to use it every turn. So it will slow you down a little bit, but you're still able to do minion and action plays in between that, plus any extra action plays or extra minion plays you can sum up with it.
Yeah,
one of the things we never really spoke about was actually the ease at which Eternal Hero can go. I imagine if you can make someone pick the card that it's attached to up, Eternal Hero gets discarded
Yeah,
because it's not going to the discard pile. So it's sort of secondary trigger won't
it leaves
work.
play. Yeah.
So I know we talked about the fact that you could destroy the action, but surely if you made them, it's much more common to have a pick up a minion card, isn't it? I think it's probably easier to have a pick up, probably about
No, I
50-50, but
yeah,
there are some factions that have
It's-
that as an option. And
it's
actually
another
that
way of
hard
getting rid
counters
of it.
it.
Yeah, it's
hard
another way of
counters
getting rid of it. And I think you just mentioned a good point there, Luke, in terms of the downside is that you're supposed to play it as your action play for the turn. But if the on-play effect of the minion that you're playing it on is so strong, that more than makes up for the downside of having to play it as your action play. So like if, we've got it on the other side there, but if your minion is Valkyrie, the upside of that is that you get to take a really strong minion from someone else. So actually the on-play effect is so strong that it more than makes up for having to use your action for the turn. So I think it's not a massive downside. It's a bit of an inconvenience, but it's one of those cards that's best paired with something like Solar Shout, where you can play an extra action and get it for free. So that one's unanimous amongst us. But do we think that the winning margin for Eternal Hero was larger than the winning margin for Time Walk?
Comparable.
Yes. Yeah. Nah, 95.
There's no way
95?
that didn't absolutely. That was a 99%.
99%. Lee, you got anything that you want to?
Well, I'll split the gap. I'll go 97.
97. I
Oh,
think it'd be
hang on. We only had 60 votes, didn't we? So it has to probably be 98%.
Yeah.
It has to be an even number. Yeah.
I think you'll be surprised by this. It wasn't nearly as close as you thought it might have been. 3/4.
People like Archmage.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and we don't know what people are considering when they make their decision. If they're considering the fact that Eternal Hero is never ever going to get played within its faction because you just don't play Warriors, then it gives Soul Shout the advantage.
That's the downside of Eternal Hero, isn't it? That's the downside of Eternal Hero, is that you have to play Warriors to play it.
Yeah.
Okay. And this was for a long time the most interesting pairing to watch on the community voting. It was one that was certainly going back and forth for quite a long time. But we've got Dragon Warrior and Yokozuna. So we'll flip it again. So do you want to start us off on this one, David?
Yeah, I think for me this was the hardest one to pick. I think they're both very good cards. I think ultimately, to me, Dragon Warrior, it obviously prevents destruction for itself. It transfers power counters. It's very good in its faction and with the playing into it, but I think the versatility and just the amount you can do with Yokozuna, I think it's the only minion with 3 abilities essentially. But I could be wrong on that one. I think it's the versatility of Yokozuna, I think, has to put it ahead of Dragon Warrior here. I think if there was one less ability on the Yokozuna card, it would be a lot closer. But I think for me, it's Yokozuna.
I mean, you could argue Yokozuna even has 4 abilities because it does effectively say this minion has +1 power as well. It's with the above average power of the minion.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Lee?
I was really hoping you wouldn't come to me next because I am sat so far on the fence with these 2 cards. It is just incredibly difficult to be able to pick one. I'm going to go with my gut. My gut says Dragon Warrior over Yokozuna. Now, I really want to love Yokozuna. I love the extra power. I love the choice. I love the ongoing as well as the choice of the talent. But drawing a card, all right, it's a little bit of card draw, but it's not a game-breaking talent. Not being able to be moved. Well, we've talked multiple times about how, I've talked multiple times about how I think movement's the weakest thing that you've got within a game, within the game at the minute. And you're looking at factions like Tornadoes, and nobody ever wants to play Tornadoes, and that's why. But the one that is interesting is move another player's minion from here to another base. That's the one that allows it to sort of keep itself around for a little bit longer, and that's what makes me want to like Yokozuna. But I always feel like there's loads written down there, but there's not a great deal that you're actually doing within it. It's massively powerful, and it's a wonderful card. And don't hear what I'm not saying. I think it's one of the better cards within this final. But for me, Dragon Warrior is the more interesting card. Dragon Warrior is one of the cards that makes me want to go back and play Kung Fu Fighters, because I've never really been interested in that faction, because I think Luke used it against me once, and I don't know, for whatever reason, I never really bothered playing it after. But really wanted to go back, and after looking at through all of the factions that we've looked through, and we've looked through every single faction now, the one that made me want to go back and play them the most was the Kung Fu, as a result of playing something like the Dragon Warrior. It's indestructible, and it completely controls the flow of the game by moving the counters from where they are to where they need to be. And for me, that's a massive thing. You know what you were saying earlier on, when you play a card down, you don't get that wow factor. For me, Dragon Warrior has that wow factor, because you're about to absolutely F some S up. It's complete and utter control of the board with respect to power counters. And the fact is, any number of +1 counters from one minion to another, it doesn't even have to be yours. Any one minion to any other minion. And that is hugely disruptive. Think about some of the factions that Luke likes to play, the whole body shop characteristic of a card that's going on. Well, there's your body shop card, mate, because this minion cannot be destroyed. Right there.
I mean, it's the dream. You transfer a whole load of power counters from one minion to Dragon Warrior, and then you body shot Dragon Warrior, and you win the game, basically.
We talk about a dream card, right? We talk about a dream scenario, the Dreamer's card, but it's not even a dream with Dragon Warrior, because it starts with 5 power, and you can basically nick everybody else's power counters. How often are there power counters on the board that are completely untouchable? So for me, Yokozuna is amazing. It's an amazing card, and basically against most, certainly anything on the left-hand side, I'd probably give it to Yokozuna over any of the cards that we've already talked about. But Dragon Warrior for me is the one that holds a bit of a special place in my heart. It's more niche, and I think that's what makes me like it a bit more.
Yeah, for me, this was probably the hardest pairing of all the first round pairings, because you've got 2 cards here that just kind of scream value. Basically, they're both multi-ability king minions that can do incredibly powerful things, and it's almost like the sort of reverse Eliza versus Herr Doctor, because in Dragon Warrior you've got the kind of niche counter card that can really hard counter certain factions at certain pairings, and then in Yokozuna you've got the kind of Herr Doctor style ongoing value card. So based on my prior logic, I should be going for Dragon Warrior here, but this one was much more of a close toss-up for me than that pairing was, because I suppose on the one hand, looking at Herr Doctor, you get a power counter every turn, but Yokozuna, you get a card draw every turn. And drawing a card every turn, I think, is much stronger than placing 1 power counter every turn, because that card you could be drawing Eliza, or you could be drawing something else equally strong. So having that extra card and getting through your deck as quickly as possible is one of the strongest things you can do in Smash Up. You draw into your best cards, you draw into your combo, and you win the game. That's what you're trying to do every single time you play. So something like Yokozuna gives you that ridiculously good ongoing value, and then the +1 power, the minions can't be moved, and the moving of a minion to another base is just icing on the cake. Whereas Dragon Warrior, on the other hand, the minion can't be destroyed is the icing on the cake for Dragon Warrior, but really you're playing it for the talent. That talent is unbelievably good. It can be absolutely devastating to certain pairings, Mad Scientists, Giant Ants, all the rest of them. There's quite a lot of factions that involve power counters. And you can just absolutely cripple those factions, and it's good in its own faction. For me, the pairing would ever so slightly go to Yokozuna, and that's just because with Dragon Warrior it is very good. It is a very good single card counter to a number of pairings. However, I think that the factions that play +1 power counters are fewer in number than the factions that can play more than 1 extra card, and stealing power counters is less impactful than it is stopping the extra plays. So just in terms of my own consideration when I was thinking about all the pairings, this one was most like Herr Doctor v Eliza for me. However, I'm flipping slightly more on the other side for this, probably like 51-49 towards Yokozuna, just because of effectively 4 abilities in one. it's the ultimate card in that you can just drop it into any faction and you've got yourself one of the best cards in the game. And whereas Dragon Warrior, you can drop it into any faction, yes, but then it's dependent on what exactly you're playing against as to how good it's going to be. And it has a higher ceiling than Yokozuna and a lower floor, but the ceiling for Yokozuna and the floor for Yokozuna is very high anyway. So I think for me, it's Yokozuna.
Can I just check? Are you saying that Dragon Warrior is Eliza? Is that what you're saying? Because if
Well, when
if
I was-
that's what you're
100%.
saying-
If I can go next, I'm going to absolutely tear him apart.
When I was looking at the first round
if that's okay
pairings,
with everybody.
this was like
is
the
that
flip.
what you're saying?
No, this was like the inverse to me. So
Because
Dragon Warrior and
if you're,
Eliza were similar.
I mean, go on, get him, Luke, get him. Get him.
He picked up on it, and I was literally waiting, ready to go, and he picked up on it, and he said that there are fewer factions that play power counters than they do play one extra action, one extra card. He had that ready in his chamber already. He already had it ready for that, because it's interesting, because I was gonna talk about how Dragon Warrior does actually hard counter factions, albeit yes, there are fewer ones that play power counters, but it cripples them a lot more than Eliza hurts card factions that play more than one action or more than one extra card. So this Dragon Warrior is actually a better hard counter to factions in this game than Eliza is, in terms of what they're hard countering and how they are doing it, in my opinion. Because not only does Dragon Warrior destroy your power counter strategy, it adds it to your own side. And I played Kung Fu Warriors with you guys once, and I have never played it again. And the reason is, as soon as I realized how much that counters every single thing that I like to do, which you mentioned early, which is build massive power upon a certain character with power counters, mainly first mates and uber serums and body shop and all the different ways I like to do it in Greeks and all the ways. As soon as you guys cottoned onto that, and so I just go, well, I'll just play Kung Fu Fighters then. Half of my game just falls apart. So as soon as I saw that and I was playing that, I immediately stopped so as to not draw any attention to Dragon Warrior's presence within the game.
You did very well. I completely ignored him until we did this.
Yeah. Unfortunately, he's now been
Not
fully.
anymore.
So I think Dragon Warrior is better than Yokozuna. Yokozuna gives you choice, but you're choosing between things that aren't as powerful as what Dragon Warrior can do. So I respect Yokozuna. I think he's a great all-rounder. You could drop him in any faction and he'd be good easily. But in terms of the strength of Dragon Warrior, he's much stronger at what he does, which is completely power counter factions. Whereas Yokozuna is nice, it's solid, it's all-rounder, but it's not breaking the game, it's not really controlling or taking over. It's just more often than not, it's just giving you a draw a card every turn, which is lovely, but it doesn't do enough to win this, I don't think.
Can I just, I like Dragon Warrior, but can I just give you two very quick defenses in my previous
defenses
arguments?
for Dragon Warrior or Eliza?
Well, I think they're valid points that need to be heard. Let's just put it that way.
Okay.
The thing is with Dragon Warrior is it's once per your turn, whereas, just going back to your link you made with Eliza, Eliza is once per everybody's turn. So actually it has more of a global effect than Dragon Warrior does. Because if you're playing a 4-player game, Dragon Warrior can only ever target one minion with power counters each turn. And as well, if you've got a 3-power minion with 1 power counter on it, if it loses 1 power counter, it's not that bad for that minion. It loses, a quarter of its power. But Dragon Warrior, I feel like, are you ever going to target 1 power counter on 1 minion? It's not necessarily something that, if you've got a couple of minions with power counters on them, it's quite a slow grind to get rid of all those power counters. It's not really you taking 1 power counter from me isn't it's not devastating for me, and that's, I think, the difference between the two cards. Dragon Warrior is excellent. I love Dragon Warrior. It's a great card, but I think it's too different to. It's not as good as Eliza in terms of what it does. When I was looking at this pairing, anyway.
So the bit missing, there's 2 things that Dragon Warrior does which are harder to measure is one, if you are playing a power counters faction, you end up with a handful of cards that you don't really want to play down. Because the first thing that's going to happen is you're going to play them down to have a non-play effect to raise a power counter, and that power counter is going to get moved away. And yes, okay, it does steal one, it does lose a quarter of your power as a 1 power counter and a 3 power minion. But by the time you move it across, it's the equivalent of a 2 power swing. That's like moving just 1 power counter is like playing an extra 2 power minion every turn, because you're getting a 2 power swing between the two. Between your faction and someone else's.
And to add to that, you get to put that power where you want it. So you don't have to necessarily put it onto him. You can put it onto another minion on the same base. So let's say that base is going to break on that turn. Someone else's powers. You've put something down on that base to break that base on that turn, and someone's got 2-3 power counters on there. You can just whip them straight off and onto your minion. It's still going to break, but it's in your favor now. And like Luke says, that's even if you just take 1, it's a 2 power swing in your favor.
They're also going to try not to put them down. They're going to try not to play them because you can steal them.
Talk about disruptive play. You stopping them playing their game. Yeah, massively agree.
I don't disagree.
I will agree that there aren't that many factions with power counters. There's a lot fewer than the ones that Eliza would affect. I will agree.
I accept that. Except more people, I think, play a power counting faction than don't. I think whenever you're making a pairing, you're thinking about how I can build power or how I can add something to this faction. And you always talk about a power counter adding faction to be able to do that.
One way you can build.
Maybe that's just my experience because I play against you so often. But that's certainly my experience.
That's not the only way to build power, though. I mean, things like we've mentioned, all the zombies, robots, ghosts, anything that can play more cards. That's a way of building power, isn't it? You can play more stuff in a turn. So. It's not universal. I mean, I love both these cards, and we had a lot of discussion on both of them in their respective videos, and I think they're both great, and I think we all do really. So it's going to be sad to lose either of these cards, but it's just the way that it fell. David, have you got anything else you want to add to that, or should we move on to the how the community voted?
No, I think they're both great cards, but Yokozuna slightly takes it for me.
Okay. Now, how do we think the community went down on this one?
Where did you? Was that a 3-1 or was that a 2-2?
2-2.
2-2. Okay, so this decides it. I think the community are going to go safe and go Yokozuna.
Yokozuna's probably.
And I think it's going to give me another negative point against one of the people. But
do you think?
And I'll be sad about that. If Mark goes clean sweep for community votes, by the way, I'll absolutely call him cheating because there's no way in
I'm just arguing
I'm just arguing which I think is best. Do we think this is 55-45, 50-50, 60-40? How close do we think this is?
I'd like to think it's close. I'd like to think it's close, but I get the feeling that a lot of people look at the 3 talents and go, the 3 options on Yokozuna and go, no, Yokozuna's better. So I think it's probably, I think it's more like 70-30. I think it's probably
70-30
in his favor.
David?
I think the extra power and it can do many things is appealing to people.
And let's be perfectly honest, that it's appealing to me. I absolutely love that card. It's a fantastic card. This is not me saying that Dragon Warrior's a billion times better than Yokozuna. I'm the same as you, Mark. I'm sort of probably a little bit more in favor of Dragon Warrior, a 60-40 split or so. But Yokozuna is an amazing card. And again, against anything that we've already talked about, I'd be voted for Yokozuna spoilers. So
you're thinking 70-30 Yokozuna?
I'm thinking that, yeah, probably.
Yeah. David, Luke, you got any guesses? 60-40?
60-40.
Yeah, 60-40. Sounds good to me.
It was actually closer to 3/4 for Yokozuna.
70-30, that's what I said, right?
And this was one that actually started out pretty much neck and neck, and it was neck and neck for quite a while. And then Yokozuna just started pulling away, and then it couldn't be caught really at that point. It just got too much steam.
Was worth making all those Google accounts, wasn't it?
Well, it's nice to know that people are wrong.
But yeah, we've got some. We're shaping up for some very, very close quarterfinals here. Very, very close indeed. Now, over the other side, this is the one that I think Lee probably would have the biggest problem on the first round pairings for. Great worm.
Actually, my biggest problem's coming later. I won't say much more about it than that. Oh,
It's going all wacky with Gogodzilla on the side.
yeah, there goes Tokyo.
And they've almost got the same sort of flavour, these cards, just from the art and things like that. They just always strike me as very similar.
Mm.
Mhm.
Who wants to kick us off then? First one on the right-hand side. Luke, are you going to go There Goes Tokyo?
You know I'm not. You know I
It's
hate
a
that.
shame. We've been
Yeah.
playing so nice, Luke. It's been nice to be on
Yeah.
your side, mate. But
I-
let's resume usual business.
Out of respect to you guys, I'm not going to go negative on There Goes Tokyo. I think you've had my feelings in the past. You know how I feel about that card. So what I am going to do, and luckily for this round, and my hatred towards There Goes Tokyo, Great Worm is one of the top contenders in this tournament, and I won't go in on why I think There Goes Tokyo is bad. Maybe a little bit. We'll see how we go. But I do think Great Worm is fantastic. So it's 5 power. You are always using its power to break the base, which isn't true of a lot of the king minions. I think some of them are engines, and you want to keep them on the field as long as possible. But Great Worm is purely is able to use its entire power to break the base, because you want the base to break that it is on. And when you win, everyone else gets 1 VP less than you. If you do that on every single base, you win the game. That is just straight up. So it gives fantastic efficiency towards whatever you're doing. It allows you to play the game with really good efficiency, which is ultimately what this game is about, being efficient with your plays and your actions to gain the most points from the fewest resources. It's a bit of a resource management game if you think about it to that end. But what it allows you to do is make bases unattractive and gain a real control over the game. It isn't just taking power off one player or destroying one of their minions. It is affecting everyone who's on that base, except for you. And I think this is one of the most powerful abilities in the game, because what we're playing for here is victory points. That's the name of the game. It's what we're doing here. So it allows you to guarantee that you keep 1 victory point ahead of not quite, but it guarantees that you're gaining 1 more victory point than anyone else would in that position. And the amount of times you can do that within the Dragons means you can really control this game. Or as an alternative, you can make a base really unattractive. You can put this on there. It might be a base you want to stay around for a long time. You put this on there, people aren't going to want to play on it because they know they have to be inefficient to break this base, and it won't net them what they want out of it. So Great Worm wins this hands down for me. I'll do a brief bit on There Goes Tokyo. It just resets everything and puts everyone else back. It puts everything back, and it's just not my style. I like people to do their strategy, be able to flourish and go through with their plan, and just destroying it aimlessly and starting again just doesn't feel like how this game should be played for me.
You'd much rather take off victory points.
I'd much rather,
get them back.
yeah, I'd much rather win the game. I don't mind if people want strategies that are negative or destruction to that extent, but this is just going, forget it. Whatever you've just been doing there, forget it. Start again. And it just feels so.
That sounds so good.
Oh,
No,
so good.
I appreciate that. I appreciate that it is strong. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying it's not strong. I'm not saying it's not useful. I'm saying it's a real disheartening, unstrategic way to play this game. Just go, okay, you know all that stuff you were doing, bang, start again. And I just don't like that. I could be wrong on the old people's vote here again. It is a strong card. I just don't like the way it's played and how it works.
I was smiling to myself when you were speaking, because you said something about Great Worm lets you stay ahead in victory points. It's just simple. You play it down and you get more victory points than everybody else. I was just thinking to myself, yeah, Invader is really good, isn't it? That's basically all I was thinking when you were describing Great Worm.
Well, it is sort of a reverse Invader to that point. It's kind of like it is a little bit like that. You're manipulating victory points, aren't you? And you're not gaining your own. You're hampering everyone else. But it is as powerful as an Invader in my head because it is manipulating the victory points that people are getting. I'm sure we might see that at some point during this tournament, but
maybe
it is victory point manipulation, and it's very hard to argue how strong that is within this game.
Lee, do you want to go next? Because I think I can maybe
You
guess
can
which
probably
way you
guess
might be
which
going.
way I'm going to lean. Yeah.
Just before you start,
Well,
yeah.
yeah.
Other than the fact that to debate against me, I know you think Great Worm is a good card, so I think this is actually going to be closer for you than Mark thinks. I think you like both these cards, and I think you have a decision to make.
I've already made it, but yeah, I've got it.
Okay.
I would never just argue with you. I mean, yeah, all right, other stuff that's trivial, but this is important, Luke. I would always take this very seriously. Great Worm is a great card. The whole dissuading people to play on a base that you've got this card on is a fantastic way of being able to use its power. And we've talked a lot in the past about how if you can disrupt somebody's game, that is clearly a classic sign of a card that is great, for want of a better term. I think a lot of the reasons that Luke said, and it's nice to hear him not talk negatively as a tactic for a change. It's nice to hear him talk positively as a tactic for a change, rather than just to try and slam the card he doesn't like. But he made a lot of very good points. It is controlling victory points, and I think we've had many discussions on where victory points really fall into this. And at the end of the day, it's the end of the game and that sort of thing. Although I'll be damned if Invader's going to win this tournament. But yeah, a Great Worm, great card. No disargument, and no argument there. Do you know what's better than one card that's disrupting everything? One card that completely destroys everything. I said it when we were talking about it, and nothing's changed, other than the fact that I really like the Kung Fu Fighters. There Goes Tokyo is the best card in this game, as far as I'm concerned. It is entirely disruptive. You said there's no strategy. What do you call dropping a nuclear bomb? That's a strategy. I've destroyed your strategy, and now I'm going to reset everything. Oh, what? You've stranded your Eliza somewhere on a board? Doesn't matter. I'm just going to blow the base up that she's on, and she's never coming back because Godzilla's sat on her face. That's what's happening with There Goes Tokyo. It is the nuclear option. It requires a little bit of setup, not too difficult to do. You've got lots of different ways of putting it in play. Tiny Priestesses comes to mind, but by playing There Goes Tokyo, and again, correct me if I'm wrong, but does Gorgonzola actually get an extra victory? He gets an extra power counter?
No, because it's not a play on. There Goes Tokyo isn't a play on base action.
It's not a play on base action. It's just a standard action. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
That's fine. I mixed up in my head there. But either way, it's still a massively powerful action that resets the board. And the aim of the game is to win. It's to score as many 15 victory points. It's to score more victory points than everybody else. Oh no, I am going to lose a base. Someone is going to get really close to them. Oh, I know what I could do. I could play a Tiny Priestesses on this base, bring Godzilla over to it, and destroy the base with There Goes Tokyo. Oh, that's right. It's completely wrecked absolutely every power counter, absolutely everything that's gone on. And because it destroys the base, it doesn't matter that a lot of cards say cannot be destroyed. It destroys them because it destroys the base. So it circumnavigates a massive amount of things like Yokozuna, for example, cannot be moved. Well, move yourself in the discard pile, mate, because that's what's just happened because the base is gone. It circumnavigates a massive amount of the restrictions that generally get put onto that. So for me, it's all right. It's probably closer than I thought it was going to be, but it's still easily There Goes Tokyo.
David?
Yeah, I agree. Originally I thought Great Worm was a better card, but I think because one less VP, it's as good as gaining a VP. Well, not quite as good, but quite close to it. But There Goes Tokyo. If Luke's got a first mate with 10 power counters on it that he's cycling between. Bye-bye First Mate, bye-bye Eliza. Ultimately, they also, it's like Lee said, the ultimate nuclear option, and there's no counter to it as far as I'm aware. I could be wrong, but is there a special you can play to
Will Wheaton.
stop
Force,
it?
Force of Will and Will Wheaton.
Force of Will, yeah.
Yeah. So unless you're playing geeks, you can't. So I think my vote is much. Well, I did think Great Worm would have a chance of winning this, but There Goes Tokyo to me beats most cards, and I think certainly Great Worm's one of them.
Yeah, for me, this was probably the second hardest pairing in the first round, and it's one that I had to fall back to my sort of spreadsheet on. I think there's a couple of things that haven't been mentioned yet that I'll mention. Firstly, is that you did just touch on it at the very end there, actually, how counterable the card is. Like, There Goes Tokyo can only be countered by Force of Will and Will Wheaton, whereas Great Worm can actually be countered by rare destruction, so stuff that can destroy 5-power minions, moving Great Worm or returning Great Worm to hand, or moving yourself basically away from the Great Worm base. So that there are more counters to Great Worm. Granted, it's quite hard to counter Great Worm.
You can also counter There Goes Tokyo by not putting all your eggs in one basket. If you spread your minions out across the bases, what they're going to do? Okay, yeah, you've knocked my Eliza off, but I've got somebody else over there, or I've got 4 First Mates and they're all on different bases. Okay, you take one out. So
at some point, though, you do have to break a base, and you will have to build up enough power to try and break a base, and that's when you just go Tiny Priestesses, There Goes Tokyo. Sorry, but you've just lost all the VP that you were hoping to try and gain from that.
Think of the resource cost of getting that far as well. That's an enormous resource cost. I know we talk about cycling through our hands and stuff, but think about the resource cost involved with that. It's huge.
The other thing is that we haven't mentioned as well is that Great Worm, I think, is better in multiplayer. So often the third place points on a base is 1 point. So actually Great Worm can completely negate any third or fourth player trying to play on a base quite a lot of times. Granted, they're only going to get to play 1 or 2 minions there and maybe in an attempt to take second, but Great Worm can completely shut down third place points, which I think is another big plus for Great Worm. So I kind of had to fall back on my sort of 4 factors that I was considering for this card. And actually, Great Worm was the winner in the pairing for me, just because.
Thank God.
There Goes
Thank
Tokyo
God.
There Goes Tokyo is more devastating. The player count, I don't think matters, but I think Great Worm marginally takes the player count because I think it's harder to play There Goes Tokyo in a 4-player game, whereas I think Great Worm has it in a 4-player for me. Ease of play, it's easier to play Great Worm than it is There Goes Tokyo. And transferability, it's much more transferable than There Goes Tokyo. So for me, it was across my sort of factors of consideration, it went to Great Worm. But it was still it was the second closest for me after the Dragon Warrior Yokozuna pairing.
Cool. Let's find out how the audience voted.
Anyone want to add anything before we move on to the community voting?
Your metrics are wrong.
Let's go. Let's find out.
Does anyone have a guess as to which one they thought was the better card?
Great
Worm, 100%. 100% to 0.
Man, I am not a man of the people.
3/4 to a quarter.
Thank you, everybody.
Mark's right again.
Everybody.
It's the same breakdown.
Mark, who took all the statistics, is right again.
No, you cannot argue with the metrics. The metrics are spot on.
I can argue with Mark. Of course I can. Mark prefers, he's verbalized that he prefers There Goes Tokyo. Because he didn't win.
Thing is, There Goes Tokyo is my favorite. It is one of my favorite cards. It's right in my wheelhouse. I love destroying stuff. But looking at the cold hard metrics, as Luke was saying there, across all the factors, it was Great Worm for me.
The only thing that makes me sad about Great Worm winning is how smug Luke now is that There Goes Tokyo.
I'm not smug. Honestly, I'm not smug. I am overjoyed.
I can't tell you.
Overjoyed that There Goes Tokyo has been, as he has done to many other cards, destroyed and knocked out and never to be seen again.
At least it got further than Body Shop. That's what I'll take.
Well, Body Shop didn't even make the shortlist, did it?
Mm-hmm.
I am genuinely. You're not collecting the statistics for the next round. I'm just not. You're cheating, Mark. I can't believe you would cheat on your own series, man. This is
Very-
Honestly, these are my own convictions. I'm not
Oh,
being
sure.
in
Oh,
any
yeah.
way influenced.
after you saw the percentages, mate. I
In
bet they
any
are.
way influenced by the community voting.
What is funny is whichever way that one voted, you are going to get either this reaction from Lee or the same reaction from me, exactly the same way. So I'm just glad it's not me. But thank you, genuinely, thank you everybody
I was
who voted.
I was happy. I saw the sadness in Luke's eyes when Mark was talking because I thought to myself,
so
he's going to
sad.
go, there goes Tokyo, and it's going to be a
Oh,
3-2.
so
Excellent.
sad.
Yeah.
I was so sad.
It was good while it lasted. I'm not playing anymore. Might as well log off.
I'll start us off on this one. So again, this one wasn't even close to me. Just on my sort of metrics, it went to Valkyrie. We know how good Valkyrie is. It's such a good card. You can take, some of the best minions in the game. Whereas for me, how I was considering the best card in Smash Up, Professor can't really factor into that because it's too niche. It's too specific to Madness. So just across my factors, as I say, inside the pairing was a very small factor for me now. It's actually it's not really a consideration anymore. It's more now about how good the card is as a standalone entity than it is inside the pairing, the faction. So for me, as good as Professor is in Miskatonic University, it doesn't have that transferability for me that Valkyrie has. So for me, it's Valkyrie.
Yeah, it's the worst time walk Professor is. So yeah.
Yeah,
Time Walk's good. Yeah.
You lose half a VP for playing half the time more, basically.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Professor, I like the Professor. It's nice within the Miskatonic University, and it was one of the clear-cut winners from that weird conversational set of factions that we talked about when we were looking at all of the Madness decks. Again, still quite interested on playing Elder Things at some point, but Valkyrie for me all day.
Mm-hmm.
Luke?
Yep. Valkyrie is a way better. So Mark keeps shuffling the order around, so I'm sort of waiting for him to cue us all in on who's going next. Valkyrie is way better. It's a great card. I'll save a lot of my discussion for it for the next round, but while it is disruptive and it does go against some of the previous points I've made, I do think it's a lot stronger than Professor.
I'm not sure if there are many better Eternal Hero targets than Valkyrie. Doppelganger, Yokozuna, maybe.
Mm-hmm.
Eliza, yeah, actually, Eliza's probably the best one in fairness.
Ooh, Great Worm.
Was that a four-way for Valkyrie?
Five-way, I imagine, because I'm pretty sure the community voted strongly in favour of Valkyrie too.
Yeah.
Did you say Valkyrie, David?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
And do you all think that the community were ahead on Valkyrie?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure.
Yeah. 90%.
Professor wins it on the community rankings. Yeah.
Wow.
Man, the community, you guys don't have a clue, do you?
No,
This was quite close, though.
They just must like the Cthulhu set. Maybe we're in the minority on Madness and Cthulhu. And
I mean, fundamentally, it is a very strong ability. But as you say, Luke, it's how are people considering what the best card means to them? And maybe there was a lot of being inside the faction that was influencing the voting.
Yeah, I think all this has proved is that it's void and that we should...
At least you can no longer accuse me of cheating.
I can, because you went last.
Yeah.
You went last. So all three of us had already picked it. So you were like, it doesn't matter what I say.
I went first on Valkyrie.
Yeah, but you knew everyone else would pick Valkyrie.
Yeah.
Is this Lee's equivalent to saying stop the count? Donald Trump, start the votes again. Stop the count. There goes Tokyo 1.
It did win in my heart.
There's all the secret votes hidden somewhere.
It should have won.
It won the hearts and minds, didn't it? That was the important thing.
I just don't get how the best card in Smash Up is not. It's not even in the consideration for the discussion anymore. It's like the rest of the tournament can't be taken serious. Look at the left-hand side.
Are you talking about
what I really want is there. It's just ridiculous.
Are you talking about Body Shot?
The best card in Smash Up? No, I said best card, mate. Best card.
Yeah.
Not Uber Serum.
You're damn right. The best card in the
best
game.
Card in Body Shop.
The best body shop in the body shop. It's not even in the body shop.
This to me was the hardest of the pairs.
Yeah.
Okay then. So do you want to start us off on this then, Leaf? You think this was the hardest for you?
Yeah, I can do. So to me, I'm going to go with my gut. I'm not going to reveal any more than that, but I feel like I have to give it to my gut on this. Now, I have vocalized my love for both of these cards. I think they're absolutely fantastic. We've looked at a couple of Overgrowth imitations actually more recently in some of the Munchkin factions, or where we've been looking at either, actually there's been a few like Invader as well, where they gain a VP or where they're going to reduce the breakpoint of a base, but the situations that they have to be used in are a bit too niche, a bit too difficult to be able to pull it off. Whereas Overgrowth is the original Overgrowth. Obviously, it seems like a silly thing to say, but it's the card that does what it's supposed to do the best, reducing the breakpoint of that base to 0. And what I absolutely love about that is that you completely screw with everybody else's game plan. That's like my style, my way of playing. And we talked about this with There Goes Tokyo, is completely ruining everybody else's day just to make sure that you get what you want by being able to sort of do that. And Overgrowth, I think, is one of the best examples of a card like that. It doesn't require a great deal of setup. It doesn't require a great deal of play around. It's basically play it down, and then on your next turn, you're going to be able to win some points. Now, if you want to be able to reuse it, yeah, you need to think about your pairings and stuff with that. Now, Killer Plants alone are a bit meh, but when you pair them with someone like, and I've talked about this pairing for a long time now, but Truckers, when you pair something like the Killer Plants with the Truckers, and you're able to pick up, move, put down, and reuse Overgrowth again and again and again, you get that sort of game-breaking scenario where the feeling of Overgrowth is 15 victory points, and it's the winning of the game, and you're able to control the flow of that way better than anybody else within the board, and they basically recognize that when you play that card down. That's the oh no card. That's the oh my god, you've played that card. On the other hand, Felicia Day is the only real card that does what she does. There's nothing else like that in the game. It's one of the things that I absolutely love about the Geek faction, is that it did kind of change a great deal of what the game was about. And this Felicia Day, move all minions to this base, it is that sort of perma rush, that board reset. It does what There Goes Tokyo does, but on a bit of a larger scale. Whereas instead of destroying it, you basically reset the board whilst making sure that someone's going to get some victory points. You're probably going to get some because it's a 4-power minion. So unless, in a 4-player game, when you're playing that down, unless everybody's got a minion on the board, and sometimes there are scenarios if a base is just gone, where actually there will be one person that doesn't have any minions on the base because they were stacking heavy on that one that's just been taken, then actually there is a scenario where Felicia Day might net you sort of second place in some cases, where if you can swarm enough stuff over to a base. But it is a great reset card, and I kept sort of doing this loop in my head, thinking, no, Overgrowth should win, and then on Felicia Day is the better card, Felicia Day should win. The standalone better card is probably Felicia Day, and I pronounced the name like 5 different ways now, but she's probably the better standalone card. And the whole idea of this is that we're looking for the card of cards, the best card in Smash Up. But the small part of me that thinks Overgrowth is the absolute, it's one of my favorite cards. And not only is it one of my favorite cards, it's also one of the best cards. And to me, I lean Overgrowth for that just gut feeling.
Okay, David.
I think Lee was spot on, but I think the last bit, I think I would change that. I think Overgrowth is a very good card in combo with other cards, whereas Felicia Day is the board reset. It can get rid of problem things like Eliza or Great Worm, Archmage, whatever someone else is using, help them. And it's a one-card thing that could, in some cases, get you second place on the base. Whereas Overgrowth relies on, yeah, it's brilliant, but it relies on other cards to give you the combo pieces to get the real good points from it. So I think for me, it's slightly Felicia Day.
Luke?
It's tough for me, this, because in my head, I have to separate what Felicia Day does with what There Goes Tokyo does. And, I think I've managed to do it to an extent, because, don't get me wrong, it sets the game back. It does set the game back, but you do gain at least one base scoring out of it. So it doesn't put you back to where you were to start with. It does reset the board, but it does hand out some victory points in the process. What it also does is allow you to be about as efficient as you can be in this game. You can use one power 4 minion to get third place, get second place, mate. But it probably doesn't allow you to be efficient. It allows everyone else to be as inefficient as they can be, which is using all their minions to score second or first or whatever it is. Or you can calculate it so that you win the base and they use all their minions to come second or third or whatever. But it does allow for a huge play where you can dial into those inefficiencies or efficiencies on your side of things. Massively disruptive. Doesn't counter things like First Mate or Eternal Hero. Some of the cards like that, which I think is interesting. I do really like Overgrowth. I think it's a very strong card. I think it speeds up the game. I think it adds a lot to the game. But the final thing that just gives Felicia Day the edge over Overgrowth is your opponents have no counter to what you're doing. Overgrowth, they can in theory get ahead of you, but okay, yeah, fine. Okay, fine.
No counter to a severely disruptive card.
I don't mean that.
Sounds like There Goes Tokyo.
No, because
sounds like you're talking about There Goes
no
Tokyo.
one gains anything from that. At least this moves the game forward still.
Does
what
it?
I mean is
Compared
compared to Overgrowth, they have a right to reply. They can play some minions down. They can try and win the base. They can also take advantage of it being a breakpoint 0, whereas Felicia Day doesn't allow them that opportunity. I didn't mean they can't counter it. I meant they have a turn to do what they need to do to try and win that Overgrowth base. There's a small chance that it might actually help them to that end if they can put more power down than you can. You've essentially given them a first place quicker than they would have got to it normally, or they might have got a cheap second place. So, there's things that could impact you negatively from playing that card.
I actually think I found the new Eternal Hero target. I think Felicia Day and Eternal Hero would be an unbelievable combination every single turn. How brutal is that?
Oh, God.
Just everyone terrified to play any cards.
You literally couldn't play anything because you just play Felicia Day, Eternal Hero, and break the base. Let's bring it all back and we'll do it over again every turn.
But you
crazy
wouldn't
strong.
win, would you? You wouldn't win.
And no,
if you could get Jungle Oasis out every turn, you would.
Or a Ninja Base.
Ninja Base.
Yeah, Ninja Base, yeah.
Or Winter Squash or something. But
yeah.
For me, David mentioned the sort of key point there, which was that Overgrowth is great, but by itself, it doesn't necessarily. It is that combo card, and you do need those other cards to make the payoff of Overgrowth what it is. Whereas Felicia Day is a 1 card second place or a 1 card third place, and that by itself isn't great. But it's more the fact that, as Luke mentioned there, that you're making other people be very, very inefficient for their placements, so they might way overpay for first and second place, and actually putting them so far back in terms of like tempo and board plays and board position and all that sort of stuff. It's such a good 1 card counter to so many different things. It as you say, it's the only thing that does this effect. There are other cards that can move 1 base around, minions from 1 base to another, but nothing that moves every minion at every base to 1 base. So for me, it's Felicia Day on this one, just because it is such a strong, high impact play when you make it. And it is just 1 card independent of everything else. Andy, what did people vote for? Was that all for Felicia Day?
So 3-1.
3-1.
I went Overgrowth, but yeah, just because of a special place in my heart. But I actually don't mind that Felicia Day wins. To me, this was the hardest decision on the board to make. And I have absolutely no gripes at all that Felicity Day won, even though she is a worse There Goes Tokyo.
And do you think the community felt the same about Felicia Day?
I'm not sure. We got quite a lot of love for Overgrowth when we were talking about it, actually. I do think that people probably, it's the obvious choice, I think. The Overgrowth's slightly less obvious choice. But I accept what's been said. It really, yeah, the power of, maybe this is my body shop, that the power of Overgrowth really lies in the fact that other cards do all the heavy lifting for it. This one is just the trigger that allows everything to work in the same way that every other card has to power up before Body Shop's even remotely interesting. So yeah, this probably is my body shop.
Well, it was. We've seen this breakdown before.
69, nice.
70-30, yes.
Our second 69 of the day.
And then last but not least, on the first round pairings.
Before we get onto the last one, I can't let it go that Felicity Day is a worse There Goes Tokyo, and yet Luke voted for it. You think it's better to give people victory points and not win the victory points yourself rather than take them off everybody at the same time. That's what you think. So you're saying, just so the people understand, you think it's better to give other people more victory points than you rather than stop everybody getting victory points, just so I understand fully what's going on.
No, you're not stopping everyone getting victory points. You're delaying it, really. You're just setting the game back some turns. They still could get back to that same state or some close to that. You're just delaying what. It's not a better It's not a better Felicia Day because Felicia Day moves the game state forward. She encompasses every card on every base and allows them to be massively inefficient with all their cards. If I put all my minions spread out on different bases, you're going to take one out. So
that's not how we play. That's not how you play. It's stop
pretending
that you play all over the place like that.
It's not. But if you're playing Kaiju, I know I'm not going to stack all my first mates up on the same base and just
Kaiju.
let them all get absolutely ripped apart.
I'm going to There Goes Tokyo the next time. What day are we getting together? That day you're getting There Goes Tokyo. Just so
that's fine. You'll get one play to send me back a bit.
It'll be glorious.
And then I'll be playing around it, don't you worry.
In fairness, There Goes Tokyo doesn't necessarily set you back because you do get to keep Gorgonzola in play. So if you do have
power counters on.
If you've got a powerful Gorgonzola, you can just shift it to another base. And
if you're playing that with Kung Fu Fighters, you can literally move those power counters to wherever you need them to be.
True. Whereas for me, Felicity Day is because it's every base rather than one base.
Yeah.
So
I'm just being facetious. Don't worry.
And the last but not least, so who wants to kick us off for the final pairing and the first round?
I would love to say that Wayfinder wins. I'd really love to.
Yeah, because I hate Invader.
Yeah.
Oh.
We're all sat here going, we're all going to put Invader through. Wayfinder is got a fantastic talent and a fantastic ability to it. Really strong card, but ultimately he can't beat those one word, one number, and two letters that say game one VP.
Yeah.
And it's such a shame for Wayfinder. It really is.
Yeah.
Because you could argue that Wayfinder is a better version of Hair Doctor, maybe. You could argue it has similar effects to anything that can gain power counters. But you just can't beat gaining one victory point. That this Invader should say, gain one victory point, put this card back in the box and don't pick it up again. That's what it should say. If this was brought out when Vikings existed, it should say, gain one victory point, set this card on fire,
go to the box,
and everyone go home. Yeah.
I can't disagree with anything Luke said. He's spoken for me today. Well, on this particular card. Everything else he said is rubbish.
David?
Yeah, I don't like Invader.
Hate it.
I hate it, yeah. I think Wayfinders, and I almost think would they print it the same if they could go back and change it? I think they'd probably change it a bit, make it a bit harder, which I think it would need because it's just too good as it is. But this is the best card in Smash Up series, and Invader is better than Wayfinder. Yeah.
How can a power 3 have got this far? How can a power 3?
Well, it's
mental.
a
Got
pseudo
this far.
it's a pseudo power 4, isn't it? Really, it's the same slot as Wayfinder. So this is really the battle of the power 4s. We just need Kappa Roja in the mix, and we've kind of got the
Yeah.
power 4 slot represented.
But
But it'll come
Wayfinder's
as-
immediately have 5 as soon as she's down, really, because you just
Yeah.
activated.
Yeah,
the
it'll come as
talent.
no surprise to hear that I think Invader is that card. I don't quite have the same hate for Invader as everyone else seems to have. I think it's a fantastic card and brilliant design,
It's
and I
like-
can't fault it one bit. But
Do you know what it's like? It's like when the same football team wins
Yeah, that's
wins over and over
exactly
again. You know that it's good, but you don't want to see it win. You just you don't want to see it win again.
This is the New England Patriots. That's what this card is.
Yeah.
Nobody likes the New
Not
England
anymore.
Patriots.
It's not.
Not anymore. It's
anymore,
not.
it's not.
No.
But Wayfinder is a very solid card, and it's just quite slow for this sort of competition. I suppose its value is quite delayed. You know, you give it turn 1, it comes down to 5, turns 2, 6, 7. It's very good, but it's very slow to get there. I think that's the big problem for Wayfinder, is it does eventually reach a very high ceiling and potentially multiple base breaking, but that's a long way off. And Invader is just instant value, gaining a VP. You 1/15 of the way there, and that's how good Invader is. It's you can't fault those cards that let you gain an extra VP.
What about
Luke
Invader
mentioned
for
it.
Eternal Hero?
No, because it's too slow with Invader and Eternal. Invader is just great as it is. If you could write an ability on a card that was balanced in some kind of way possible, this probably isn't it, because it's probably a bit unbalanced. But
What
gaining
do
a
you mean,
VP,
Probably a bit.
gaining a VP,
Probably
just
a bit unbalanced.
unconditionally gaining a VP is. I can't think of any better text on a card in fairness.
Every
than
single
Marvin.
time that they have reprinted this sort of talent, we've seen, like as I mentioned it earlier, we've seen a few of those attempts recently. Gain a VP when such and such has happened. Every single of those conditions has been incredibly specific and a bit difficult to pull off, which is why none of those cards are in this discussion. But this card is, because you just got to play it down. It's ridiculously easy to play. It's so annoying. It's infuriating that it's this far. I don't want to see this card go any further.
And they even give you a way to get it back again.
Yeah,
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
and this is those cards. When we've talked in the series about sort of the build around cards, and Invader is one of those cards you pick aliens for Invader. You don't pick
Yeah.
aliens for the aliens faction. And it's similar to Princesses and Eliza. It's similar to probably Warriors and Eternal Hero and other cards like that, where they're so iconic and so strong that you're picking the card, not the faction. So I think that was a clean sweep, was it? 4 for Invader.
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
As
Nobody's
much as
happy
you guys
about it,
seem to, yes, as unhappy as you seem to be about it, it's gone through. So do we think this was a higher win margin than Time Walk and Chicken Soup, which is 90-10 at the minute? That's the highest win percentage.
I don't think so.
It might be, because we did get hate for Wayfinder when we originally put that through. I know Luke's mate, old Robbie P, he was pretty vocal about it, wasn't he? So
Yeah, I think he was in favour
hate.
of Sun
I
Tattoo.
don't mean hate, obviously, but
Yeah, I think he would have rather seen Sun Tattoo come through.
Well, I think there was a few
but then
people that voiced that same thing.
Well, that's it. It's what's better, the engine or the payoff. And we've had this discussion before. And Wayfinder is the engine and Sun Tattoo is the payoff. So it's kind of, well, they're both very similar in that situation. I think the engine's probably better than the payoff.
Isn't Sun Tattoo a lot like Body Shop?
Yeah, but it's a better card than Body Shop.
Yeah, didn't Luke vote for Wayfinder, or did he vote for Sun Tattoo?
I think he voted for.
They were all in my
Wayfinder,
top
wasn't
3. They were all in my top 3.
I think it
So
was.
don't
I think it was
don't give
Wayfinder,
me
wasn't
any
it?
of
Was
that.
it Wayfinder? I think he voted for
give me any.
Wayfinder, mate.
I've also got to do a shout out to Timothy Alchemy, who backed me on Body Shop, admitted that it's a fantastic card and that you guys were all wrong. So shout out to him.
Well, as we've seen this evening, the public know nothing. So yeah, great.
Well, on this one, the public did get it right. Community backing Invader very strongly. So we've got all our first round pairings done. I think actually for me, the first round was easier than I thought it was going to be.
Mhm.
I was quite surprised by how easy some of those pairings were. There were a couple of difficult ones, but in the main, I was
Generally-
generally leaning one way or the other quite strongly.
1, 2, 3, 4 of the best cards in this game have already been eliminated, and what's been put through instead is worse.
Really, you think so?
In
Oh,
theory,
yeah.
8 of the best cards in this game have been eliminated. We're going to eliminate another 7.
Mm.
No, but 4 by proper people's voting rather than the people's voting.
Can't
Yeah,
argue with
and,
the people.
Well, the updated count for the people is me at 7, David at 6, Luke at 5, and Lee at 3.
What a surprise! The guy who knew the results got the most results.
I didn't get them all right, though, did I? I didn't get them all right.
No, because if you'd have got them all right, it would have been suspicious, wouldn't it, Mark?
You
I'm
literally
looking at-
missed on one of them.
I'm looking at the quarterfinals now, and I'm thinking, you know, how good are these quarterfinals? Like, these 8 cards are just unreal. You know, how close are these quarterfinals going to be?
I mean, the right-hand side, yeah, definitely. The left-hand side, to me, looks like a bit of a dead duck.
Really?
Yeah, the
Time
left
Walk
is
Eliza,
weaker,
Eternal Hero, Yokozuna?
Yeah, Time Walk's an easy win. Yokozuna over Eternal Hero. Yokozuna.
Spoilers.
He's influencing the community voting here to try and get his score back up.
Again, doesn't really. I can't win, can I? Unless we're going to reset the count for each series we do.
Yeah,
I
we'll do it.
basically
We'll do it
can't,
at each. We'll do it at each round. I'll do
Do a cumulative as well,
Yeah,
obviously. But each round and cumulative.
leave that down. I'll put it as round 1 at the top, and then we'll do quarterfinals. But yeah, that was it was good. So what we'll do is we'll do the quarterfinals, semi-final, and final in 2 weeks' time. We'll do some more community polling, and as I mentioned at the very start, if you want to do the next round's polling, it's down in the description below and in the pinned comment as well. I've not quite worked out how I'm going to do the semi-finals and the final on the back of this round of polling, but it'll be down there. You'll be able to work it out.
You should do a poll for each matchup, and then you should do a poll for each side. So then you'll have which card is the best out of its pair, and then which is the best out of the 4, and that'll at least get you to the final and semi-final.
Yeah, I was going to do something like which is the best in the quarterfinals, and then maybe your winner of quarterfinal 1 versus your winner of quarterfinal, like that sort of thing, and then try and work it out. But it could get quite complicated, I think, in terms of working out the semi-final. I might just do something similar where it's of the final 8, or of the final 4 on each side, which is the best, do you think? And then which do you think of the final 8 should be the winner? And then maybe do something like that. But I'll work it out tomorrow and put that out with the video.
We can probably talk about this off air, maybe.
Yeah. I'll it'll be in the survey when people go and do it anyway, when it's finally up. But thank you to those people who did it in the first round. 60 responses is really great, and it broke some of the ties in the first round pairings that we had. And as you can see, the community and myself are very aligned on lots of these pairings. So hopefully there'll be more of that to come.
Absolutely.
And Matt promised that because he got 7 of the community votes, he'll spring to the £99 survey monkey.
No, it's all going to be
extra
Google
large
Forms.
survey, just as a thank you to everyone. So that's nice.
No, it's all going to be Google Forms after this. But so next week we're going to do the worst card in Smash Up, and we've done our list for that now, and we've narrowed it down to a final 8. So there'll be a shortish worst card in Smash Up video, and then we'll be back the week after that with the final for this tournament.
We should definitely put some cards on there for discussion, the contenders for the list, so that, because there was a few cards that you guys put through that I thought there's no way that you could justify that, and I know my list was pretty controversial in places as well, so it'd be interesting to talk about.
We'll do a so obviously we'll do the 8 that we put through, which crossed over on everyone's list, and then everyone can just do like an honourable mention or a shout out for one that they felt should have been in, because there's a few that I think are scandalous that haven't made the final list.
I think it's scandalous, some of the ones you put on your list. Spoiler alerts, everybody. Some of the cards that made this best of tournament were on Mark's list.
Oh, you're talking about best of. I'm talking about worst. Oh, yeah. Sorry.
You put
yeah.
Some that made it into the best tournament by a group vote were on Mark's list of the worst cards in Smash Up.
The ones that we put through, the ones that were going to be on the video next week are only the ones that were on all 3 of our lists.
All
so
3 lists.
There's none in there that you didn't put through either.
Managed to weed out your ones then that
There's some on the
Right,
duos
that's-
list that should be in the final though to discuss. But yeah, we'll talk about that next week.
Everyone can do an honourable mention, yeah, and you can bring up those. But with that out of the way, thank you very much for watching, and we enjoyed that. It was some good discussion again. And who knows what's going to happen in the quarterfinals, semi-final, and the final. It's going to be interesting to see. And I don't want to put my finger on who's going to be the winner at this stage, but Invader. But yeah, I mean, it's going to be really difficult, I think, for this tournament.
If we've done all of this for this to be an Invader versus Eliza final, Luke, are you not going to be absolutely livid that we've wasted our Monday evenings for like forever now?
I mean, I'm riding high because there goes Tokyo didn't make it. So
I might literally.
It's nice that the only one I've ever won of these has been that one. Then I'd be happy.
If we get an Eliza versus Invader final, I might have to give my game away because there's no way in hell I'll ever want to play it again.
Thing is,
Run it as a competition to the viewers.
Yeah, we're giving away a full set of Smash Up.
Sleeved. Fancy sleeves as well.
Yeah. Right. Well, thank you very much for joining me, and we'll see you all next week. Goodbye.
Bye.
Thanks, guys.